everyone. Thank you for joining us for our Facebook Live chat this morning. We will be hosting these sessions every Friday at 10 a.m. during the pandemic to discuss some of the common themes caregivers are experiencing. Today, we are planning to spend about 20 or 30 minutes on the topic of the impact on caregivers. We invite you to ask questions in the comment section of this video, and we'll do our best to answer as we go. My name is Miranda, and I am one of the registered social workers on the Society Support Team.
Good morning, everyone. It's Cindy Bond here, an educator with the Alzheimer's Society of Calgary. Good morning. Good morning, Miranda. How are you today?
I'm doing okay. I'm glad we're able to go live this morning.
I am as well. Yes, last week we had some problems, so this week looks good. Yeah. So this week we're going to talk about the impact that COVID-19 has had on caregivers. There is a little bit of research out about that now, and actually there's, I do a talk, it's called Building a Foundation for a Good Day, and we talk about the impact. So I just wanted to very briefly, because we've got so much to talk about today, mention a few things that are happening for caregivers. So things that we know for sure, of course, every caregiver is different. Every person is different, but it is there are effects on us physically that we know of. So people can be having sleep difficulties, eating changes in eating habits, things like stomach upset as well. So physically, there's definitely an impact on us, as well as mentally, easily frustrated, quick to anger. Again, that, mentally we're not sleeping, we're ruminating about things, we're worried. And yeah, during that webinar that I do, Building a Foundation, we talk a fair bit about worrying and how that impacts caregivers. So
right.
Definitely
and it's
those
important.
Points.
Right. It's really important to understand that there are those physical effects. I don't want to spend too much time today talking about what the impact has been in terms of what caregivers are experiencing, because of course you as the caregivers are aware, right? But those physical changes, I don't think everyone is able to identify as an impact, right? Link those two causes. Yeah. So that being said, let's focus on some of the things that caregivers can do to make sure that their well-being is well taken care of during this time.
Yeah. So Miranda and I have been talking about this for a fair bit.
Yes.
There's a lot to cover, so let's get to it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Cindy, what do you think is one of the most important things that caregivers need to be doing, particularly during this pandemic, but of course always, to take care of themselves?
That's a good question. I don't know about the most important, because every caregiver is different, but I know for me as a caregiver, I need my quiet time. I need my space. I need a time to reflect and just do my own inventory and see how I'm feeling, because you get busy as a caregiver and you forget to check in. So I would say for me, that's important. Now, how do you get time alone? That's tough, because if you're living with your person that's living with dementia, is I think grabbing snippets of time over the course of a day, rather than, for some, certainly they could take maybe an hour-long walk or even a half an hour. But for others, maybe it's 5-10 minutes.
Yeah. And just like when we talked about activities, self-care doesn't have to be a big production. It can be a minute reminding yourself to take a breath, right? And breathe through a moment. Or leave the room when things are getting too difficult and you're not really in a place to manage maybe a behavior or a certain situation, and just need some time for yourself.
Yeah. I think anybody who knows me, and I've done education, so anybody watching's probably heard me say this before. But my favorite tip, and it was actually a caregiver who gave it to me, was to put a book in the bathroom. Now, I'm not an avid reader. I'm just not. And especially as a caregiver, there's no time to get into a book. But
Right.
just like a fun bathroom book, some trivia or whatever, and going in there and closing the door. And like you said, take a breath. Just and maybe, I don't know, read a couple lines in a book,
Right.
just
Short stories.
ground yourself, I think, is the key, taking that breath to ground yourself.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've been speaking to quite a few caregivers during this time who are choosing to either wake up a little bit early or go to bed a little bit after their person. So it's time where, one, you're alone, and two, you don't have to worry about, okay, what's my person doing? What do I have to do to help them, right? Or monitor them, make sure they're safe, things of that nature.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
And I think that spins into, if you can, and if this technique speaks to you, it certainly doesn't speak to all caregivers, but just journaling at that time, if you can, make a cup of tea or whatever, and get whatever's going on in your head out onto paper for some, or even talking to somebody at that time, a confidant, just getting stuff out of your head. We're not supposed to live in our heads. And yeah, that's important.
Right.
Yeah.
So another way that caregivers may be able to make time for themselves would be taking something off of your plate, right? So self-care doesn't always have to be adding things like adding a walk-in or adding a long bath. It can be taking things off of your plate. That's a way to give yourself some relief.
Yeah. I like the ordering in stuff. So Wednesday is Takeout Wednesday, apparently. Just treat yourself if you can. Ordering groceries online, even your medication can be delivered at some pharmacies now. So that helps you to minimize your day a little bit. Absolutely. I think that would be helpful.
Yeah. Another one would be, along with taking something off your plate, is choosing your battles. Right?
Yeah.
There's a lot that we can't control with dementia, right? And with this pandemic as well, it's a lot of uncertainty for caregivers. So recognizing what things that we have control over and what things we don't have control over and can maybe let go of.
Yeah.
So that ties nicely into your example with even the food delivery and whatnot, right? It's a great example of how to take something off your plate, let go of needing to make a meal, and let someone else do that where possible.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that spins into, that not arguing with your person as well, because you just kind of go with the flow a little bit. Ask yourself, is it a hill worth dying on? We're going to talk about that more next week with managing expectations, but it certainly fits with this, I think, as well.
It's a great question to be asking.
Yeah. I think it's so important now as well, because we know that caregivers are, or not just caregivers, all of us are susceptible during times of self-isolation to depression, loneliness, and anxiety. So yeah, taking that breath and taking your inventory is really important. And then planning, I love that, planning ahead as much as you can. Of course, managing your expectations around that plan, but something, planning ahead, even putting your clothes out the night before, what you're going to wear. It's so simple, but you don't have to think about it. Not a big deal.
Cindy, just to touch on what you were saying about us all being susceptible to depression, anxiety, particularly during this time. I'd like to really stress that it's important that caregivers and people living with dementia, all of us, are seeing their doctors as needed through these times, right? Now, those appointments may look a little bit different, as some doctors are not seeing patients in person, but many of them are doing video calls or simply a phone conversation to do appointments.
That is so important, Miranda, so important now more than ever. A lot of caregivers aren't getting that support that they had before going into isolation, whether it's
Right.
family or a professional support. So connecting with your doctor is really important. Yeah, I love that. Yeah,
Well, and likewise for counselors, they're doing
yes.
appointments through Skype calls, Zoom calls, things of that nature.
Yep.
Which is important to be aware of.
And even the distress center, right? After hours, I think is important as well if you just need to talk. So,
Yeah.
and we also, that's a good segue into our live chat feature that's on our,
On our website. Yeah.
on our website, not after hours, but during our work hours, definitely to connect with us that way.
Right. Yep. Sometimes, particularly because people living with dementia are at home, it may be harder to talk to a social worker or a counselor on the phone. So you can always send an email or use our live chat feature on our page.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had an interesting call I'd like to share, and that was a caregiver was saying that her person, she gets help because her husband's friend that they connected with once a week, he connected with his friend once a week, and they used to go to Tim Hortons. Yeah, so that looks a little bit different now, but it certainly, the caregiver used to really look forward to that time when she was just by herself, and then her husband's friend took him out, and this was a golf buddy as well. And yeah, so that was really helpful.
So what does that look like during the pandemic? Are they able to, instead of going to Tim Hortons, of course, what are they doing now?
So interestingly enough, they're actually meeting in the garage.
Oh, okay. Lots of space to
Yes.
6 feet apart. Yeah.
Yes. So the wife said, she reached out to the friend and said, can we make this work? Because I really appreciate the time to myself. And my husband so enjoys your company. Is there a way to make it work? And he said, yeah, let me think about it. And he said, well, why don't I just drive over? And if the weather's not great, we can sit in the garage, 6 feet apart, and just share a thermos of coffee.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah. So
what advice would you give if, some people are a little bit less comfortable even with that 6-foot distance? They want to, just keep at home. What would you suggest for somebody who didn't even want to venture to do that?
Even I think like a Zoom call or even a phone call or Facebook, or a messenger, but yeah, still making that connection is, I think, really important. During these times, seeing someone is better than a phone call.
Sure.
So you can, not everyone has that technology, certainly, but just sitting out and just talking on the phone even.
Right.
But yeah.
That's a really great idea. And it's important for the caregivers as well, right? This time, this pandemic is not social isolation, right? It's social distancing. So it doesn't mean that we have to stop having relationships. I mean, maybe even forming new ones on an online support group, or connecting with friends, like you said, over a video chat.
Yeah. And I would say, again, just to reiterate, plan ahead of time. And then you have something to look forward to as well. And I think we all need something to look forward to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. I really like that caregiver's creativity.
We've talked about activities and creativity, and something you and I both have done, Miranda, is gone to the dollar store or the Dollar Tree, or in Ontario we called it the Buck store, but whatever. And you don't have to spend a lot of money, and there's all kinds of neat things. And set up like a treasure bag or something, whatever, an activity around the house or whatever, but fun things to do for your person.
Especially with the nice weather coming, they have tons of gardening equipment and seeds. So there's lots of activities. And even going to the dollar store, if you're able to leave your person alone. Now, I wouldn't recommend spending a lot of time at the dollar store, right? We want to encourage safety still, but it is an outing, right?
Yeah.
It's open during this time.
Yeah. And there's a lot of cool stuff there.
There is. And stuff is adapted, right? I know they have a set of dominoes, which is a great example, because you can play the game. You can make up your own rules. You can sort them. You can put them away and organize them. There's so many different things that you can do with just one purchase. You just have to get it creative.
Right. And, if any caregivers are listening and you're thinking of venturing out to the dollar store and wondering how to get creative with certain items and you're not sure, feel free to contact us about that as well. I've got 100 different ideas, not literally 100, but lots of ideas to do with a pack of playing cards. There's so many different things you can do. I
think you could come up with 100 if you had
to. You have a lot of faith in me. I could come up with a few.
There's one other point that I'd really like to stress, that because I'm hearing about it a lot on my calls, just to kind of change gears here, along with the loneliness, the anxiety, and the depression that we're hearing a lot about, I'm also hearing a lot about guilt. And really that juxtaposition between wanting to be there for your person in person, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you don't live with them. They're in a care home or they live independently in a house without you there. And just hearing a lot of guilt around wanting to be there, but also wanting to respect the boundaries of social distancing. So maybe not going as much, not taking them out to grocery stores and on errands like you used to.
Yeah.
Because that really has been impacting people's self-care, right? When they're riddled with that guilt. Mm-hmm. So I'd like to talk about some strategies around moving through that guilt a little bit. So the first one would be one that we kind of talked about already, and letting go of what you can't control. Right. And the reality is that, of course, there's things that we can do to help slow down a progression. Right. But ultimately, it is a progressive disease. Right. Mm-hmm. And it's going to progress whether that person is there or not.
Yeah.
And that's a sad reality. Right. But mm-hmm. I think it can really, or I hope it would help with that guilt. Right. Is that you have to let go of the things that you can't control, especially during a pandemic.
Yeah.
What else would you say around the guilt?
Two things. The first thing that comes to mind is guilt is like worry. It's only effective, or not even, maybe it's only worth doing if you can make a plan out of it. So, and guilt, I think, is like that. Could you be realistic? Could you do more? So I think guilt can be a good thing because it can motivate us to do better. I think the caregivers that we've been talking to, they've been doing everything they possibly can.
I would agree.
And it's we tell long distance caregivers because, it's similar in a lot of ways. There's a lot of behind the scene things I think caregivers do to help, maybe having groceries delivered, you know, that kind of help, and helping your loved one figure out, even a parent has the parent has their person, their partner, their spouse living at home with them that has dementia. As a adult child, you could help to set them up with grocery delivery and Zoom or media, those kind of things. I know it can be frustrating to help them with that, but that is definitely something that would be a big help.
Yeah, think of it's really easy to dwell on all the things that we're not doing, or the what ifs, right? I should have, I would have.
Yeah.
I think most caregivers, at least the ones I'm talking to, if they wrote out all the things they are doing, I think that list would be a lot longer than the things that they're not.
Yeah, a simple phone call, just checking in and talking. Again, we have a webinar on communication. You know, instead of asking a lot of questions to the person living with dementia, talking about yourself, talking about, you know, plan ahead for that conversation. Talk about birds if they love birds, or golfing if they love golfing, those kind of things. Instead of asking, how are you today? And what are you doing today? And that can be overwhelming. So,
yeah. Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, we're over 20 minutes now. Are there any other points that you want to make sure we get into this Facebook Live?
One more thing quickly, and I'm going to drop a name. One of our staff members, Trisha, during a meeting, talked about this whole, I'm not sure the whole title of it, but it's called Ninja, where you can spread good things and drop things off to people you know, just like a little care package. And it's a good neighbor ninja or something like that. And you don't leave a note so they don't know who it is, or you certainly could, but yeah.
So just leaving some, like even a tree at the front door of someone's house.
Yeah, so you and your person could get in the car together. You know, of course, it's not appropriate for everyone, but if you have time, and you know, that good feeling, we all need that good feeling, right?
Yeah.
I think that was a really cool thing.
Absolutely. And even if your person can't come with you, maybe you can ask them, should we put this or this in the care package? Right. So letting them be involved in other ways.
Absolutely. Yeah, I like that. That could be a lot of fun. I might start doing that.
Yeah. Well, what a positive note to end on today.
So do we have any questions, Miranda? Anybody?
No, just a few hellos and comments. Yeah, but no specific questions.
Okay.
We will, if questions come later, I'll look on Facebook every few hours over this weekend and see if there are questions and do my best to answer.
Okay, sounds good. Not on the weekend though, Miranda, self-care. Next sorry.
Fair enough.
So I want to thank everyone for watching. Next week's topic is managing expectations, which we touched on a little bit. You can see how all these kind of melt in together. Call to speak with a social worker one-to-one at 403-290-0110, or send us an email at info@alzheimer.ca, alzheimercalgary.ca, sorry, or chat live. We use this feature, so start using it. Chat live, everyone. Go and talk to, I believe it's Lindsay.
Yeah.
Dropping lots of names today.
That's okay.
Like our viewers are family. So yeah, chat. Lindsay wants to hear from you. Or you can talk to a social worker, www.alzheimercalgary.ca. Like and share our video as well, and watch for more. Thanks for staying tuned. You have a great day, Miranda.
You too, Cindy, and you too, everyone who's watching.
Take care. Bye-bye.